Nashbait has been aiding anglers in catching carp for over 30 years, and after location is perhaps the most important aspect in getting a carp to pick up our rigs. Nashbait has always been evolving over that time, but the thought process has always been the same, to give the angler one less thing to worry about and to provide them with the utmost confidence. It's an exciting time at Nashbait, the vision and products always developing, and this spring sees that journey unfolding further as we brought some changes to the range along with a fresh new look. Scopex Squid and Citrus are still in the range, with some adaptations to the citrus range, along with the introduction to the lineup of the much anticipated Monster Shrimp. Visually, you'll notice the packaging has gone through a bit of a rebranding. This is both for practical and sustainable reasoning. New boilie and pellet bags for both 1 kilo and 5 kilo products now both feature easy opening and zip sealing to the packaging. Any unused bait can be zipped up and stored for your next session. When it comes to the peripheral products such as the liquids, boosters, hook baits and attractors, the packaging around these have also been improved. Enlarged pots now host the stick mixes and newly named coated hook baits. From a sustainability point of view, we're also super proud to say that all of our bait bags are now 100% recyclable, and everything else from pop-up pots to liquid jars are made from 100% recycled materials, as well as being fully recyclable.
It was probably around 8 years ago now when we first launched the humble citrus pop-up, and that's all it was back then. And it was the amalgamation of two incredible bait gurus, Gary Bass and Keith Sykes. They came together and worked on it. At the time it involved 22 different additives, stimulants, attractors, flavours, and it was certainly way above my head. But it did change my fishing. And I say that because up until that point, I was like a headless chicken. Every weekend I'd use a different bait. Within a session I'd be chopping and changing between baits. And for the bulk of the time, I would blame my poor angling on the bait. The citrus changed that for me. It meant I no longer had to take with me Tutti Frutti and amber strawberry and some peach and some pineapples and constantly not really know which one to use in which situation, because I'd been reassured by Gary and by Keith, and most importantly, a good couple of years worth of catch reports that were flooding across my emails of just how effective this new citrus was. I can look back on this period and say there's been no other bait I've ever used, no other flavour that's caught me more fish than citrus, which is quite ironic really when the bulk of the time I've used it in the winter months. That was kind of what it was developed as originally. Of course, it progressed and evolved. It went from the humble white pop-up to bottom baits. People, yes, were getting bites on just a single hook bait, but wanted that opportunity to feed a few freebies around the hook bait. And from there, we introduced fizz and stick mix, the pink variation, plume juices, and as the years wore on, the range did get a little bit bigger. But it was always nothing more really than something to take out in the cold when the bites were very, very hard to come by. You could chuck a citrus out there and you stood a really, really good chance of getting the bite. Until the European ladies and gents really started to use it. And they changed my perception, the perception of everyone in the bait factory and all of us at Nash Tackle really, through the sheer demand for bigger bag sizes. They wanted 2.5 kilos, they wanted 5 kilos, we want to buy 10 kilo bags because they were filling it in and having mental results. So even though it was originally developed as a high attract single hook bait, people were catching not only over quantity of it, but right through the seasons, which I suppose kind of takes us up to now. We've relaunched it to a degree. The attractive flavour package, it hasn't changed. It actually hasn't changed, apart from the addition of a really nice toffee palatin. The base mix has changed though, for the better. Max and the team at the Bait Factory have worked really hard to introduce lots of new bird foods, make it much smoother, much more rounded, and just something that for sure works absolutely fantastic all year round on big lakes, rivers, canals, commercial high stock venues. The field testing of this new variation has been outstanding. So from the humble pot of pop-ups right up to 2024 and a brand new broad range that will allow anglers right across Europe in any situation and eventuality be able to fish over big beds of bait or still that single hook bait lure approach. Yep, citrus has got you covered. I can't wait to my season ahead. I'm not just going to be using it in the colder months, I'm going to be using it right the year round, and I'm looking forward to experiencing some great results on it.
It's been about 6 years now since the relaunch of Scopex Squid, and in that time it's become really the pillar of the Nashbait range. You know, we've got lots of good baits in the range, but for me that sits right at the very top. And it catches so many carp, that's the thing, thousands, tens of thousands. The confidence of having a good bait is so important in all my fishing. You know, I base all of my trips around the bait I'm using at the time. You know, it's the first thing I organise for every trip when I'm planning a trip. You know, bait is the first thing, and you know, if you don't have confidence in your bait, then you don't get anywhere really. And you know, and I do have so much confidence in Scopex Squid. It is a bait that's worked for me everywhere, and I know I can take it to any lake in any country and it's going to get me a bite. I guess I've got quite a long history of Nashbait actually. I caught my very first 50 pounder years ago in the 90s on a batch of Scopex ready-mades that Gary Bayes made up for me all them years ago. Since then, I suppose I've used most of the baits in the Nash range, the Instant Action, the Monster Squid, Scopex Squid of course, and they've all been good. You know, the consistency through the Nash range is something that really sort of sticks with me, and I know that whatever bag of baits I pick up, you know I can catch on them. So, you know, it's confidence, it really is confidence. Trying to pick one capture out isn't easy. I've had some lovely fish in the last few years. My biggest carp came to Scopex Squid in Italy, but if I did have to pick one, it'd probably be on the lake next door in Royds, which I caught at the end of a year-long campaign. And what was nice about it was that I started off catching and I caught all through the year, but through that year the fish gradually got bigger and bigger and bigger, culminated in the biggest one in the lake, Royds, at 57 pound. So that to me showed the true quality of a good bait, that one, it was consistent all through the year, but the average weights went up and up and up to the biggest fish in the lake. You know, that to me is what the Scopex Squid is all about.
For many years, Nash have had staple baits in their range, and for Claire and I, it's been pretty much exclusively Scopex Squid and Citrus, of which we've used both to great effect with some truly incredible captures over the years. But when we heard there was a new bait coming, how could we not be excited? We always felt like there was something missing from the Nash bait range, you know, like a proper stinky fish meal, like the smell that hits you when you walk through a tackle shop door. Monster Squid and Monster Crab have been legendary baits by Nash, and I'm pretty sure that Monster Shrimp is going to fit in right alongside them. Last year, Claire and I were lucky enough to get our hands on the Monster Shrimp. During a session in France, we was able to catch some pretty impressive carp with one absolute monster from a tricky gravel pit in a situation that I feel like we otherwise wouldn't have caught if we hadn't had the pulling power of the Monster Shrimp. In the coming weeks, there's going to be plenty of information and more technical details about this incredible bait launch, so keep your eyes peeled.